Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marvin Revolt, and I'm the chair of the commission. I want to welcome everyone to what we now have as a biweekly gathering. We're doing this in an attempt to make sure that the commissioners have an opportunity to learn what's going on within the organization, and also it's kind of a review as to what they might be looking at in upcoming meetings. We will continue to do these as long as everyone feels that they're useful. And once we've met that goal, then we will probably stop doing these on an ongoing basis. So my idea is to not create one more meeting for us to all join into. I got to watch something on Sunday morning that says how unuseful these may be. So having said that, we're going to take a look at, you all see the agenda here that we're going to look at. I really want to keep the time frame as we've set. Your time is valuable, and we do appreciate that. So what I'll do is kind of at this point turn it over to Craig and Laura, and we'll take a look at the first area on the agenda here. So staff update on testing. Go ahead, Craig.
You bet. This is one that we had some questions come in on the emails, and so I wanted to hand it off to David. So you're aware of some of the work we're doing as far as hearing from the cannabis industry on this issue, and also that we're working with OHA and the Oregon Department of Agriculture on this. So David, I think all I'm looking for on this, just like the chair said, these bi-weekly meetings, I think it's like a heads up, right? So Commissioner Floyd and Chair Revolt and others know kind of what we're working on. And I know this has kind of been a hot topic in the industry. So I was going to hand it off to David just to give an FYI of what is this issue and kind of how we're meeting the challenge.
Definitely. So I'll introduce myself. I'm the laboratory and compliance coordinator with the OLCC. So I specifically focus on dealing with kind of coordinating between ODA and OHA, their different laws and rules that impact our licensees. And as I'm sure you guys know, the OHA writes the testing rules for how cannabis is tested, the recreational piece of how cannabis is tested in this state. And this rule initially was considered all the way back actually in 2015 in the initial lab testing rule advisory committees. And OHA initially went with just kind of random audit testing for micro, but in 2019, the Secretary of State audit then recommended that we add microbiological contaminant testing and heavy metal testing and mycotoxin testing to the regime of the standard compliance panel we put cannabis products through. And that has been in the process because that was 3 new tests. That's a lot of new testing for our licensees. Those tests were considered, brought to rule advisory committees. There's lots of time for the public and our licensees to get input on those. And then that rule package passed last year and then started phasing those new tests in over time. So we didn't just throw a giant new panel at everyone. We phased them in over time. And there were a lot of other changes that went in on that, including expanding the batch size to 50 pounds. Prior to it had been 15 pounds. So that was kind of a give to the industry to help reduce the testing costs that adding all these new tests would provide. So there was a lot of consideration there, a lot of stakeholder involvement. But heavy metals and micro came online in our rules for anything that was harvested or manufactured after March 1st of this year. And so all the old stuff is basically grandfathered in. Could always be audit tested if we had a specific health complaint that we received. We could always investigate those and run them through those tests. But pretty much everything on the shelf prior to those dates didn't require these tests, only new stuff. And so right now we're about a month and a half, coming up on 2 months in. And so the only usable marijuana that's been tested so far is going to be indoor grows. We're not going to have a lot of outdoor grows from March 1st. So I always like to put an asterisk there on the data, but we've received a lot of concerns from licensees who've had product fail or licensees who've heard about people with product failures, and they're concerned about, oh man, what is this going to do to the market? What is this going to do to these individual grows who may already be struggling with market conditions as they are? And so that's why I think there's a lot of people reaching out. And I just wanted to help put that into perspective. And I did create like a one pager of kind of just information in this background that I can put out to everybody as well, just to get more information. I've also been working with OHA on putting out a new compliance bulletin, or just kind of an educational bulletin regarding specifically Aspergillus, that hopefully will be coming out really, really soon to address some of the questions the industry has about this. The big highlights I want to drive home are, this is really as close to a national standard as there is. There's a ton of, it's pretty much bog standard for a mature recreational market. Any of those states, they're doing Aspergillus testing. They're looking for these concerns, or they're doing a total yeast and mold test, which would also be looking at Aspergillus and those other things, but it's far more broad panel. We chose not to go that route and look specifically for 4 species of Aspergillus, pathogenic Aspergillus. It's not a general Aspergillus. So you'll hear a concern of, oh, Aspergillus is everywhere. Yeah, there's 180 some odd species of Aspergillus. We're only looking for 4 particularly nasty versions of it. And then we're looking for E. coli and Salmonella. So that's the microbiological panel. Pretty standard. Right now, as of this morning, we're sitting at about a 3.1% fail rate, which is not crazy. Certainly, no one wants to fail a test. It can have huge ramifications depending on how large of a batch you put forward. I don't want to minimize that at all, but there is a threat of harm, and that's why we are running this test. Aspergillus can be a threat of harm, either dead or alive. And so we've had the industry ask, well, could we look at requiring viability testing to see if it's just dead or not? But there is a threat of harm even with it being in a dead state. There was an analysis of a large database of health insurance claims back in 2016, and cannabis users were 3.5 times more likely than non-cannabis users to suffer a fungal infection. 43% of that was from Aspergillus. So we didn't just kind of come up with this or copy and paste it from just because another state is doing it. There's a large amount of case studies regarding especially immune compromised patients and cannabis being extra susceptible. And because we know cannabis is used as a medicine in the state, it's targeted to people who are immune compromised as a way for treatment. I think it's especially important to take care of that community and understand this impact on that community. So I think it's a really good test. I think it's doing its job right now. We're in Bud looking at a 5.8% failure rate. I think to give that perspective, Colorado in 2019 had about a 15% failure rate. So we're not doing nearly as bad as what some states do. They were using a total yeast and mold standard, so a much broader panel of just how much living yeast or mold is in here, versus we're doing a much more targeted approach at looking at these particular things. So that's the big difference. But lots of other states are doing this: California, Alaska, New York. It's all over the place. So it's a very common test. And if someone fails, they have remediation options. They can either look at trying to remove the microbiological contaminant itself. And because Oregon has lagged behind so many other states in doing this test, there's a lot of companies that are out there that have been working on solving this issue in other states. You can kind of find those options pretty quickly when Googling. And, I would leave it up to businesses to figure out what's going to work for them and what, leads to the best outcome for them. We allow for R&D testing so people can explore this issue and do preventative testing and make, preventative changes. And one other thing I wanted to flag is when we have spoken to laboratories that have worked in other states and done testing in other states and here, they've seen that just like what we saw with pesticides, the first year they saw higher fail rates, and then the fail rates dropped as companies were able to change their growing practices and better, explore what's going on, investigate the issue, and properly address the concern. And so I don't have any doubt that we would see the same thing here. Our first year pesticide testing was higher, and then we started to see a drop as people were able to change their growing practices, figure out where they're getting their soil from, where they're, all these different things that you can kind of pull levers on to address this issue. So I think there's a lot of options available. I'd be happy to answer any questions people have or get any more info for you.
So thank you, David. This is Chair. Two questions. One is, I want you to make it very clear as to who is this rule? Who sets this rule? Did we set these rules, or Department of Ag set this rule, or OHA set this rule? Who set these standards and rules?
Yeah, this was the health authority. Yeah.
So this is the Oregon Health Authority that set these rules and limitations.
Yes.
And then ultimately, it is up to the businesses to look at ways in which to help them comply. Basically, a business mindset, rather than us telling them how to run their business.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I would also like to flag, we have been listening to the industry. We've had a couple meetings with the major kind of lobby groups to hear from their concerns. We've requested the data that they've been citing, but we haven't received any yet regarding specific larger fail rates that they're perceiving there to be. So we are still trying to gather that information to make sure we have a full picture of it. So just want to make sure those efforts were known too.
And just to jump in there, this is TJ. That meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but that meeting with the industry groups happened the 5th or thereabouts. So that happened the 5th. The request for the data was made at that meeting. And then I believe there were contact with interim director Prins and commissioners after that meeting expressing the same concerns, but still lacking the data that had been requested by OHA, ODA, and OLCC to those same groups who are then calling around.
So if someone is up to any of the organization, within the organization, they really should, be reaching out to who. Sounds like whereas they want to bring us into this, they should be reaching out to OHA or someone else. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, this is OHA's rules. Margaret and Megan Lockwood, both of the people I believe on this call, those are great resources to reach out to. I run the olcc.labs email, and so when I get that information, I send it over to them as well.
And what are they even asking us to do? I don't really understand. Because they've been reached out to too, but this is an OHA rule. This is and I don't know how in good conscience we even do anything with this. So, what they want, or what can we even do?
Yeah, I don't think there's really much that we could do in our rules for it. I've heard of different requests have been made, such as allowing people to sell failed batches with just a warning on the label saying this was found to have blank on it, something like that. That would be completely outside of any paradigm we've done with any other test failure. And so that would be a pretty radical change.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Craig?
Yeah, I think, let me make sure, Maximum. I think, David, thanks for the rundown. I think this is just an industry that has a new rule that was, very concerned about non-compliance. And so I did get some calls right before Easter. I think it was on Good Friday. Right before Easter. And so we want to work with this industry and OHA And I think the first step is, if you're concerned that you're not going to be compliant, give us your information so we can work on it. We don't want this to be a barrier. As David said, if you Google, I still can't pronounce this right. I'm going to give it a shot. Aspergillus. David, how'd I do?
It's like a hard G, aspergillus.
Aspergillus. Dang it. So I think the first thing is we want to work with facts. We believe OHA is testing for only a small number of strains or types of Aspergillus or micros. We want to make clear that, if you Google this, there's forms of Aspergillus that are always in nature. That's not what this is about, I believe. We want to partner with the industry and OHA to make sure this is protects individuals who might be susceptible. Consumer protection is always a priority for us. And we want to work with the industry to make sure that this is working as intended. And the best way we think to do that is to partner with each other with data. And so, Commissioner Miletus, I think one of the asks was, could we just suspend the rule? That was early on, but as the chair said, it's not an OLCC rule. It's just rolling out. Excuse me. And so I think the best way to move forward is with partnership and data. Thanks, Chair.
But years in the making. This came out of a Secretary of State's audit years ago. This was always on the agenda from day one. All these things are rules that take years to implement, and they see coming a mile away. So when they come, this is what we deal with. And when the rules finally come, then everybody's up in arms. But this was a long time coming. So, I don't know what we do on it. It's a toxin to people if they ingest it. We don't know. So I don't know how we really stand in front of a moving train at this point. But that's my take.
Well, I think it's important that, as this comes out, we're going to have to just point blank, whether they want to hear it or not, says, there's not a whole lot we can do for you. We cannot suspend this rule. We cannot change this rule. This is something that's called, good business, and it is all designed for public safety in that scenario. And we can give you the contact information that you should talk to at OHA, and then you can look at remedies on that. But I don't want us to get into a position where we're trying to abdicate against a rule that, as Commissioner Miletus stated, has been years in the making, and it is, it's time to move on from our position. Not to be, cold-hearted about it, but there are things we can do and things we can't do, and we're not going to take on windmills at this point. So great. David, thanks very much. What do we have next?
Next, we've got Nikki on the agenda. And by the way, thank you, Matt Miletus and Jennifer. Sorry for the login issues. It's good to see your faces. We got you on there. So the next one we have is Nikki going over some items on the organ item code requirements. So Nikki's on. Go ahead, Nikki.
Okay, I guess I would like to give some background why we did the transition. Basically, the prior to transition, the organ code is basically 5-digit. You get the full for the item code, and then the ending number, which is 6-digit. In-house is typically like an A, a B, a C. That's clarify what size it is. But out in external, like the agent, they would use like a B would be a 2, would still be an alpha. So it basically come down to about 5 years ago. I start bringing to IT and everyone's attention, we're running out of code. We are limited based on those, how much code we can generate new code. So it basically come to about 2 years in, I think 2021, that we are going to be out of code by September 2021. because we would generate more code than we can delete it, discontinue it, because not only when we discontinue product, we can't clear out and reuse the code until all the inventory out in the store, every single bottle out in the store have to be cleared out. And after that, it have to stay maintain record for 3 years before we can purge it and reuse it. So that was a problem. So when we decided we look into it, I know Chris said now we look into NAPCA code, possibly switching into NAPCA. So we basically, I think we were in discussion with David Jackson and the NAPCA team. We really went into the process of working with them. Our intention was to go to NAPCA code. So as we look into and dig into it, it come to an IT embed and did their little research. It basically come down to if we switch to NAPCA, they have their limitation too. Basically, if we were to go with the NAPCA code, there is a category. I think it was vodka. They would basically we would be running, or they would, out of code within, I think they say 7 to 10 years. So it was determined. I believe Chris took it to the executive team. I'm not involved in that, but it was determined to make the store do this transition and then have to go back to them again to do the transition again was not really feasible to do that because we caught chaos. So we determined what, and also not only that, go into play, the store used the item code like the 6, 11 digit or 5. We thought maybe we expand it to 7 or 8, but they used those item code for their related item. So if we were to transition to it, that would kind of really run into and overrun their related item too, so that they would not be able to use store. So after IT and we talked about it, and then we determined that's how we came up with the 11-digit code. But basically 11-digit code that you have, the 999, that's a placeholder we can expand into. And then we have 6-digit for the item code right now, and the ending digit, which would be a size identifier. So it's kind of similar to NAPCA, because NAPCA used like a size, like a 2-letter, like a 175 would be a 17. A 750 would be a 75. A 700 would be 70. We use that premise, but we just don't have. The 999 is generic for us that we can take away if we need to expand the code. NAPCA have that nailed down based on category. They would have 450 would be for tequila, for example, and then they in that. So we determined that we go with this route with 11-digit, we would have unlimited code. We wouldn't have to go back to change it again. Before we implement this, we did have a few meetings with the supplier. I sent out many. We had a couple of meetings for those suppliers who want to have questions. We have meeting, and we did have some. Most of the supply was okay. We have a couple of suppliers, Diageo and Bacardi, were not, because it will entail some expenses on their part, and we understand that. We listened to them about the size of the code would be too long, not to fit into the label that we require. We make some adjustments on that where they don't have to put the 99 on there, so that would limit the where it can go on the label. We also work with them where they don't have to transition the existing code until we're ready to go into our new system, because we were looking at getting a new warehouse management system to see what we can do. So we basically postponed them transitioning all the existing item code that is 4-digit right now until January 2024. Not to say, basically a lot of it had to do when the new warehouse will be implemented. So I've been asked already about, are we going to extend that? I'm looking into that. I mean, right now the warehouse is operating with 2, the old system, the old code, and the new 11-digit code. So we are functioning okay, they're used to it, so I don't see that as being an issue. If we need to prolong it until we transition, I think I'm fine with that. Not a problem. I think we can work with the supplier on that. But that's basically the background why we had to do either that we won't be able to set up. That basically Perfect, we would discontinue, we would not be able to bring any new item in. We can't do special order. It would basically kind of lock us in.
Thank you, Nikki. I think Chair, for me, these are new meetings, and I think what I'm getting is we're getting to the why. So when commissioners get questions of why are we doing this, I think Nikki just gave you the why of this change. Nikki, thank you so much. It's really helpful for me too, as you're educating me. But I wanted to see, Chair, if you had any questions, and then I'd like to hit the home delivery bill with Rosie, if I could, before I have to step off for an in-person meeting in Salem. So just wanted to see if there was.
So let's hold that spot because Diageo kind of caught me by surprise. They always like catching one of us by surprise. And I give them the deer in the head, like, look, what are you talking about? What code? I don't know what you're talking about. So we're going to come back to that, Nikki, because it's like they always said, can we have a sidebar? I said, Craig can have a sidebar. He's an attorney. He knows how to do that. I don't want a sidebar. But we're already scheduled to have a sidebar with Diageo next month. So we're going to hold that spot because I need some ammunition to help me on that sidebar thing, Nikki. So, because he was like, I never heard of that before, Commissioner Revolve. Yeah, right.
Well, we've got 90% of the market. So if they've got if there's a national way to do it, we probably got to listen to them a little bit. And then the other, Craig's got to go, so I don't want to ask too many questions. But Nikki, is this per unit or is this per case that these codes are for?
The code is for the shipper case. It have to go on the shipper case, yes. But it need to be assigned for each item we bring in. It's all related to that.
But not per bottle, correct?
No. Bottle, we scan it. The store, that's how we track it. We scan the UPC and then it will bring up the item code.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll talk more later.
We'll talk more. Okay. Rosie, you're on. This is fluid.
Thanks, Matt. And hey, Matt, thank you. And please feel free to circle back. I just wanted to hit this one before I had to go. Thank you, Matt.
Delivery.
Yeah, for home delivery. Go ahead, Rosie. Go ahead.
No worries. I'm at the Capitol, so there is a bell going off reminding the legislators this is time to get to the floor. And so if you hear that digging behind me, that's what's going on. For the record, Rosie Shatkin, Government Relations Manager for OLCC. And on the home delivery bill, there's been a lot of work being done on this bill. As you recall, House Bill 3308, we're looking to create a third-party delivery permit, and it authorizes the third-party facilitators, the Ubers, the Instacart, to sort of deliver from an eligible business to a final consumer. In that respect, we have a number of sort of conditions that have to be met, and also ways that the OLCC can hold the delivery facilitator accountable. I think everyone, Tyler and Director Craig Prince, have been doing some incredible work in sort of collaborating with stakeholders, our important stakeholders on this bill, and working with legislators as well. We're now in our -8 phase in sort of amending this bill. Might subsequently be more, but for now, working in ensuring that we can all sort of reach a consensus as this is a governor priority. So I'll leave it there if anyone has any questions for us, and if Craig Prince wanted to add anything, any additional notes to that. But that's pretty much where we are today.
Yeah, just want to see if there's questions, and then I'll wrap it up. If there are questions, I'd like to hit those first.
Are there any significant? This is Chair Revolve. Are there any significant roadblocks that we're dealing with?
I don't think so. I'll hit this one.
Point.
I think it's just there's so many folks. I think everyone wants a bill to pass. There's so many different interests, Chair, of the third party delivers, the off license premises licensees. Everyone, I think, understands we want to make sure that we can enforce and make sure people are not serving people under 21 in the home. They're not serving visibly intoxicated. They're trained. Sounds simple, right? But when you move something on these statutes, you just have to check. You're doing a lot of checking in with different partners. So as Rosie said, I'm working directly with Rosie and Tyler and Legislative Council. I'll get another amendment out through publishing, hopefully today or tomorrow. And then I'm meeting with the partners that you all work with to make sure that we've got something we think we can all agree on. And I think we're super close. It's just a bunch of it's a bunch of lawyers and lobbyists thinking about their clients and a lot of amendments and how they can protect their own interests. But everyone, I think, wants this to work. And so the bill is in rules, House Rules Committee. And what we'd like to do is move it out of there as soon as we can. So Rosie, thank you, and Tyler, and also Dan Croy for your leadership on this. And that's really the update we wanted to give, because I know this is a big priority, I think, for staff and for the governor. And I think, we wanted to be responsive to the changes in consumption during COVID. And this is just a really important area that we need to regulate.
Commissioner Doherty or Floyd? Latest?
No comment. This is great.
How different is this from the one that we tried to do in 2019? Or, I mean, maybe that's a long conversation,
I think it's quite different. I mean, because we're making it clear that common carriers are excluded. As Rosie said, we're making it very clear this is about to the consumer at their address. So that's big. We're making sure that we're defining, Matt, as you know, lawyers defining terms, right? What is a delivery address? What is a third-party facilitator? So we're defining a lot of terms. I think it is substantially different from the 2019 bill that Rosie worked on. And that's why we're being successful, I think, is we're being flexible and responsive. Rosie, did you want to comment on that more specifically?
And I definitely have to give props to Dan Croy on that one. It was a 2020 bill, and he worked on that. It was quite extensive, but I believe it failed mainly because I think folks walked during that year, so they didn't get a chance to vote on it. And there were some concerns about delivering to the door. And we learned from that experience that it's really educating legislators and stakeholders on the specific goals. And we were able to accomplish that in 2021 as well. We brought the bill forward in 2021. We discussed it then. We almost created a task force. I know that it was critically important to the director and commissioners then that we have something that we can hold folks accountable. And so this time around, we're focusing on the narrow subset of delivery facilitator and ensuring that we're holding them accountable. So we will have some rulemaking as well in terms of the fees that we charge for the application. Is it annual? What's the cost going to be in terms of violating the statute? So we're going to be doing that in rulemaking.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Doherty? Okay.
You're on mute, Commissioner Doherty, just making sure you know.
Okay.
Chair, I should step off so I'm in time for a stakeholder meeting.
Thank you too, very much so. And with that, we're going to go back with Nikki if she's still available.
Thanks, y'all. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
So, Nikki, these codes really are designed to go on the boxes. What's the concern of Diageo at this point?
Well, basically, a lot of Diageo product, what they do is, let me give you an example. I'm going to share my screen with you exactly what the label look like. So maybe that will give you a good picture what I'm trying to say. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, here's the memo we sent. Basically, typically a lot of product, like a lot of company, they have pre-printed cases boxes that they done. So basically, what it mean is they would have this is right up here. See, Casamigos, right here. This is NABCA code, the 499. That's represent tequila for them category, and this is the item code for NABCA, and the 75 is the size. That's what they would like because most of their boxes, like the mainstream, like Crown and all that stuff, will have a pre-printed cases that have those number on there already. For them, that would be easy. We asking them to put in organ with our organ number. For them would be having to have to create a new die or plate to print on the boxes. That's what the expense. It have to do with the expense that they would incur.
Okay.
And what we asked them, so what we went with would be the 11. Typically, a lot of complaint was the size, the 999. We sent this out. So basically, we say, okay, if the space is an issue, you can take the 99 out, just put organ, and we just need a 6-digit and then the size.
So let me just ask, does every state make them do this differently, or is this just?
Yes, they actually, that's true. I think there's about five states that have their own unique code that they do, but a lot of it is like, they use NABCA code. I think don't quote me, but I think about 8 or 9 does use the NABCA code. Their goal is they're trying to get everybody on the NABCA code. But, like Mississippi have their own, they try to work, when they create this, Mississippi system limitation on how many, we asked them, why didn't you go expand it to a larger number? They couldn't, because Mississippi had the same problem we did when they have their system made up that they couldn't go beyond the 5-digit number too. So that's why when they created the NABCA code, they kind of cater around some of that stuff to get Mississippi on board, from my understanding. Please, if I'm wrong, my apologies. That's what, from the feedback.
So NABCA, well, okay. I guess, yeah, it's shouldn't they be lobbying NABCA essentially? Because I kind of see what they're saying. Like we should all, if we're as the control states, we should all try to get on the same page, and them as essentially 90% of the market. Maybe it's a good, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, it's
our goal is, like I said, originally, I'm sorry.
Sorry, and you mentioned that there was an issue with us in Oregon implementing the NABCA system. Can you go over that again?
The reason being, when we look into it, there's a store factor into it. The liquor store all have probably right now currently 4 or 5 different POS system with very limited what they can do. And also some of the limitation is also with the item code, the related item. Because a lot of this number, when you go into what the liquor store used to create your number, would overlap with some of the NABCA number, or even whatever number we create that generated. So we had to expand it to the 11 to bypass all those too.
Okay.
And also our system, everything right now we have in-house, for currently to expand, I don't know how going in the future, like the item code, let's just say our item code for Jack Daniel is 146B. That is embedded in every report, in everything we currently do right now. So in order to maintain those data, we would have to capture those numbers and keep it to pull those data. And that's why the code that we designed, it actually still used that fundamental of, instead of 5-digit, it expanded to the 6-digit. The 4-digit to the 6-digit. So like the Jack Daniel, the 146B, right? It would now be 999-00-14675. But it keep the core number in that the store will look at it, 146, Jack Daniel.
Yeah, it's is the solution that we're proposing just a Band-Aid until they get to a national system, or is this is the permanent deal? Because it just seems kind of
It is
crazy.
my understanding is a permanent deal because, okay, here's the thing. What IT, I can't answer for IT. My understanding, based on the existing NAPCA code they have, vodka category would be running out of code. NAPCA would have to make adjustment to be able to accommodate vodka in about 10 years. That's what my understanding is. And then if that's the case, then we'll have to go back to the liquor store again to ask them to update their system to be able to accommodate the new revision, what we need to add. And that's my understanding that's why also the decision was made not to go forward with that.
Okay. And so when we talk or doing with Diageo, they just don't want to.
It is an expense.
But it's an expense to everybody, not just them, right?
Yes, right. Most of the suppliers have made this transition, have pre-printed the box. So I mean, those are I say the two that I told you are the main two that I have been getting, And as you know, every time we go to NAPCA meeting and stuff have came up that they just not want to do it.
Before or after May?
It's had been ongoing since the transition. We get regular, like that they would like us to keep going, they keep going back. It is easier for them, but it's also limited us. I guess how I don't know what our new system, what we're looking at, what it's going to be capable of doing. So I can't answer that question. NAPCA code, what typical NAPCA code work is, a new supply come in, before they even come to the state, they go to NAPCA to get an item code. And then they come to us and go, hey, I have an item code. Here's the product, it's product. So when they get listed, we just basically use that item code to set it up in the system. That's how it would be. And you have to be a member of NAPCA to get those codes. So they would have the supply, small or big, would have to sign up with NAPCA to get the code or pay for the code.
Yeah. I was just asking if, yeah, okay. No, I got you. I think that gives me everything I need.
Commissioner Doherty, you're going to be with us at NAPCA. Do you have any questions around this? Because this is going to come up again in May.
It will.
Yeah, I don't at this time. No, I got to get into this a little bit deeper. I was having trouble connecting here.
So Nikki, I think what I want to do is that in May, before we head to NAPCA, is I want at that May meeting before we go to NAPCA, I think I'd like to have you brief the four of us who are going to be there again, just so it's fresh in our mind.
Okay.
Of how it came, what they're doing, and perhaps based on the cost factors for everybody. So I think for me, before we go, is have you brief us again so we're ready when we get there.
Okay. I will. How about if I also put in a couple of the bullet point of why the reason, the decision and stuff. So kind of like a little fact sheet for the information.
No, great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. All right. Any other questions for Nikki? Once again, everyone, the whole purpose of these biweekly meetings is to let the commissioners know what's happening within the organization. Anything that comes up prior to the meetings, what we can, what we can't do, because we get a lot of requests on what they'd like for us to do. And that's what we're looking for. And the idea is that we're going to continue these as long as they're seen and deemed as useful. Nathan, one of the meetings has come up, and I want to go into it now, is that at one of our meetings, I want to talk about the technology that the different stores are using, like with different POSs that come up. Mm-hmm. What is that? What are we doing about that with the technology? Ordering, all of that. So perhaps that's a good topic for us to touch base on sometime here in the future. So just thanks, Nikki, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
So Laura, what do we have now?
I think that's the end of the agenda, Chairman. And just so you know, Commissioner Curran is on the line. She's connected through the phone, so she may not have the ability to speak. She's on mute, but just wanted to let you know she is in the meeting.
Oh, great. Good morning.
Mhm.
So, for anything else for the good of the order, everyone?
The chair. So if we have any questions on the commission meeting, the agenda, should we just call directly to staff?
Correct. Thanks for bringing that up. One of the things that I want all of us to be aware of is that as you say you want information, you want education, you want to know how to best serve the organization, I'd like for you to call directly to the executive director, to Nathan, to Rosie, to Stacy, and ask a question. Get that answer. And then if that's kind of the question that you think is appropriate for any of us, let's take an opportunity at one of these kind of to bring it out. Let's talk about it at the major commission meetings, but don't wait until we have a meeting in the middle of the month. Please move forward to educate yourselves and to be ready as you get questions. And as you get questions from people in the community, sometimes it's not appropriate for you to even answer those questions. So reach to within the organization and see how should you handle that. One of the things that we talked about was training meetings. We've developed a schedule that's going to come out to us all, what we're going to be looking at over the next several months after our meetings. So we're kind of go old school, way back in the day, but we're going to come back with more current information. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to say thank everyone for being here. And we can say, have a great day.